What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm getting to introduce my new latest project. She is, I would say, in decent condition. So as you can see, the tailgate's seen better days. This is all completely bent out, but I think with, some sledgehammer work and a block of wood, we can bend that back a lot better than it is now. Little dents like that, I ain't worried about it. This right here, I'll probably sand it and see if we can make that look a little bit better. The guy went crazy with a flux core welder and welded this for some strange reason to whatever this is. I guess this was the bumper. I don't know, but we'll get that all pretty. So the interior of this thing actually isn't too bad. I know it's really dirty, but just take a look at the condition of these lazy boy seats. You got separate armrests and everything like that. The wood center console, I'm going to take that out and sand it. I can actually show you guys how to restore that, make it look real pretty. The dash here is good. I need a new trim bezel thing. All right, but after that, it'll be good there. That whole area is why I got the truck for really cheap. I don't know what concoction these people were trying to put together, but oh my goodness, it's terrible. This was the dimmer switch wiring, and we got the house electrician working on this thing. And just wire caps and everything. That's not how you're supposed to do this, especially on an automotive car. Mismatched wires. Oh, we need to fix that. This was my ignition switch, and now I don't trust it. Got some random plugs just laying out here. The compressor for the air horn, I believe, is right there. That is something of whatever. And then more wires. Speaker wire, Speaker wire is good for everything. And then this is a lot of dirt. Now, I believe, he didn't say anything about this, but looking at the truck, I think this truck was flooded out up to the door jamb. Because of all the indications of the water, the excessive amount of dirt, grime, debris, and so on. Same thing in the back. Or, it was one of these windows or something were open. The roof liner actually looks to be pretty good. Right there looks kind of discolored. I'm not sure if that's because of the air horns or whatever, but it might be that something's leaking. And then right here is pushed down permanently, and I'm not sure why. I gotta look into that. We'll figure it out. She's got good bones, but she needs a really good cleaning. So I think that's where we're gonna start. Alright guys, so it's the next day. Went ahead and got the entire interior took out of the truck, and what I did was basically go through and pressure wash literally everything. Now the whole point of that was to get out the large amount of dirt that was stuck in there. And I know I mentioned it earlier, but I genuinely do believe this truck did have water up to the door sills and the bottom half of it. So it was a mess in there, to be honest with you. But I got the carpet. It's been drying out here in the Florida sun. Everything can get dried out in the Florida sun, so I'm not too worried about it. Same thing with the driver and passenger seat and the rear seat. I just went ahead and moved them inside the garage because I just want them out of the way in the meantime. But everything's all dried up. That should be good to go. While we're finalizing that, I noticed that the truck turns over very slowly, and the battery seems to be really good. The starter is brand new. I can say the battery terminals on this thing are horrendous. Now, ironically, I found a front pocket find in the back of one of these seats right here, and it had some battery terminals in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and use those. But I want to show you guys a cheap way you can find some battery cable. So let's take a look at that. Right here, we have the battery cable from any, I would say, majority of the rear-wheel drive Dodges from the early 2000s up until even now. This is a 1-gauge starter cable, and it goes from the trunk all the way to the passenger side footwell. Super easy to remove at a junkyard. All you have to do is take out one lug, which is a 13 millimeter, and then just take off the battery terminal and cut off that little lead, and you go ahead and got yourself I think it's like almost 20 feet long battery terminal. So we're going to cut this up and utilize the cable, and I'll show you how I wire loom them and everything along those lines to make it look super nice and professional. So in making battery cables, what I like to do is to loom them, of course. I like this stuff. I actually got this on Amazon. I could probably leave a link in the description for you. But for like the positive battery cables, I have like the little red accented one, and then for the negative, of course, we use all black. And on the positives, I like to put a little of the red heat shrink on the outside of the cable. If I had any more black heat shrink left, I would obviously do the same on there, but today, since I don't have any, I'm going to use some Tessa tape. And this is all pretty cheap stuff. I mean, most expensive thing is obviously the battery cable, but if you happen to do the thing like I was telling you about going to the junkyard, obviously it all depends on how much they're charging per foot. That is actually a very cheap way to get that cable. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's labeled as welding cable, but it's 1/0, and that should be more than enough to provide enough amperage for pretty much any project you guys have out there. So these lugs, I get them on Amazon as well. You get like a multiple pack for like dirt cheap. And these are the battery terminals that we're going to be putting on the truck instead. And they came with the truck too, so it's a win-win. Let's head to the engine bay and get these installed. Well, as you can see, these battery cables and terminals are just absolutely horrendous. So what we're going to be doing is replacing them with the ones that came with the truck. This is what we're replacing it with. And you can clearly see, you know, this will pass a hell of a lot more amps than whatever the hell this is. And we're going to be operating not only the positive lead to the starter, but we're going to be doing the ground as well. I'm not going to mess with the alternator wire just yet, honestly, just because I don't have enough lugs. These are going right in the trash. I wouldn't put these on my worst enemy's car. All right, so I got the wire cut to the length I need. All I really got to do now is just strip this quick, do a rotation on it, pull it off. And that's all good to go there. I'm trying to slide this in here like that. And then these are the crimpers I use. No idea what they're called, but they do get the job done. All right, so I just swapped out the positive battery cable. This is the original lead that goes to the steel knee junction over here. And then I'm leaving the factory, or the one that was in the truck. That's the ground cable that was there. So let's see how fast it cranks over now. All right, here goes nothing. She starts right up now. And at this point, this is when the one and only fuel pump that was actually working started to really act up. I mean, the truck was barely running at this point. So with the truck running worse and worse, I decided to release the parts cannon. Wasn't a wise move. Truck was still running absolutely terrible after changing literally every sensor I could get my hands on. And that left one thing. That was the fuel pump. The fuel pump in the back of the truck on both tanks were bad. And I mean bad, like really bad. So I waited until the next day when my brother was available to give me a hand to drop those tanks to address the problem further. And then tomorrow morning, I decided to ramp up the interior modifications instead. And on today's agenda, I'm going to basically get the entire lower floor set up and ready to go. So that means cleaning it up, spick and span, and then getting all the sound insulation and crap like that on the floor after I... I don't know what I just put my hand in. After I do all that, we're going to then have all like the exterior door panels and crap. I'm going to sit here and clean them up. I'm just going to use some basic greaser. There's nothing special you really need to use on these things. We'll coat them up and make them look really pretty afterwards, but then we can get the car soundproofed and start getting all that crap out of my garage back into this thing because it's overwhelming. It's a lot of stuff. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get this crap out of here. Start working on the floor. And just like that, all the interior stuff is out, except the seatbelt because I can't find my torque bits. But I'm just going to spray some multi-purpose cleaner. It's the Mr. Clean brand. No other reason that I'm using this besides the fact that it doesn't smell like shit. So it'll work great. I'm just spraying it down. I'm going to give everything a nice wipe down. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then any of like the little surface rust that we got going on here is all going to get eliminated in just a minute. And just like that, the floor pan looks absolutely fantastic. All I really did was clean up the surface rust and just rust reformed it and put some white spray paint over on top of that with some primer as well. And this thing should be good to go and not have to worry about it rusting anymore. So in order to really do that with the floor and make it look nice and pretty, first thing you're going to want to do, like I said, wipe it all down, make sure this is all nice and clean. You know, things along that nature. Get all the dirt, grease, grime, you know, any of this crap out of here, because whatever's here will get stuck in the paint when you're done with it. So keep that in mind while you're doing this. All right, let's push all this stuff out of the way. Show you what that's there for in just a second. So first thing I'll spray down is the rust reformer, this guy right here. This will just really be on all the spots that I noticed that there is rust already. I can crack here, whatever the hell you would call this, on a drip rail. Spritz it on all the spots, like I said, that are rusty. You know. We're at least going to try. That's the point of this. We're just going to try. Doesn't mean it's going to be working perfect, but where I live in Florida, this is probably more than enough. We're just going to let that dry for a little bit. And in the meantime, let's start laying out some sound insulation. What we're going to be doing is starting wherever there's no sound insulation first, or butyl. This stuff is all butyl, right? So we're going to do this quick and easy, right? I'll say about right there. Throw that somewhere. Stick it and lay it down by hand first, right? And then I'm going to show you a cheap roller that I used for this stuff like this. This is a vinyl roller. It's for flooring, but it'll work perfect for something like this. You just take it and do exactly what it sounds like and roll the material on. So I'm going to go ahead and get this laid out, and then I'll meet you guys when it's all set. So to sum things up on installing the sound insulation on your floor, you really don't have to overthink this. Use the roller, lay it out flat, make sure it's nice and stuck to the ground because those are the key important parts. And don't worry about covering every square inch of the floor because it really isn't super necessary that way. You'll notice a difference if you get the good majority of it anyway. So after you lay it out, get your seams butted up the best you can. Don't shoot for perfect. And then just go from there. Really all there is to it. So I got a little sidetracked. I wanted to change the fuel pump to make sure the engine and everything was all good on the truck. And my brother was here, and changing the fuel pump on these trucks is not fun. I can actually show you a little bit of video of what we discovered. The entire fuel pump was completely melted through starters, right? And then the actual filter, when we opened it up, was completely clogged. And I mean like completely clogged, like it looked like poo coming out of the filter. So, it was time, about 10 years ago, to get that replaced. But I honestly think the filter and everything was just fine until the truck got flooded out. I know the guy, like I said, never mentioned it, but there's no damn way in hell that this truck was not flooded. I mean, all the obvious signs are there. It's a good thing that we caught it early and the tanks didn't rust out, but at the same time, I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't mentioned. Would I have still bought the truck? Yeah. But, honesty does go a long way. And there's no way in hell you didn't know the truck didn't get flooded if you were there during the hurricane. Hurricane Milton, by the way. If you guys haven't seen in the news and you've been living on a rock past couple months, Hurricane Milton was a hurricane that hit Florida and affected a lot of Tampa area. And this truck was located in St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg is pretty close to Tampa, so it got some liquid in it for sure. And I think that's the reason why the floor pan and everything was all nasty. Thankfully, this truck does sit pretty high, so it wasn't really covered or submerged that deep in water. I mean, if it was like a freaking Toyota Camry or my MR2, that thing would be completely totaled out and there's no saving it. Every component, electronic, and everything would all be underwater. This, on the other hand, it made it out okay. I mean, after changing the pumps out, both of them, not just the front, the truck runs great. I have no issues with it. So, yeah, I have no complaints. The engine sounds healthy. That's all anybody could really ask for, in all honesty. What I was mostly concerned about is the rust, and stuff like that, because I will sit and do wiring repairs all day, any day, or even dropping the fuel tank and replacing it in comparison to repairing rust. Repairing rust and body work is just extremely tedious if you want it to look right. And on top of all that, it gets very costly very quickly. So even though this is a more common truck, certain body panels, because this is a truck and they were all beaten up to all hell, are still worth a good amount of money. Like hoods and stuff, not really. They're like $100 for a hood. But fenders and everything like that, tailgate especially, this tailgate's mutilated. Those things are some coin, for sure. So to skip a little bit ahead, the next thing I did was install the carpet pad back into the truck. This is just some cheap stuff I found at Home Depot. You don't have to use anything special. And to sum it up, you really just lay it out on the floor, cut it to the shape, cut out all the holes in the floor for like seat bolts and stuff like that, and then you're pretty much good to go. Should this help with sound insulation? Slightly maybe, sort of kind of thing. But me knowing it's there will make me feel a little bit better.
Well, it is time to detour again. Right now I'm at Tractor Supply to get some coolant, and the reason why I'm here is how cheap it is. Now let's take a look. This is the full strength one that you would have to mix with another gallon. And then you have like the pre-dilutes over there. but the green stuff is $11 and it's already pre-mixed. You know, so you really can't beat that price. That's super duper cheap. So I'm gonna pick up a couple of these and then we'll head back and change out the coolant in the truck. Alrighty guys, so I'm back from the parts store and Tractor Supply. I went ahead and grabbed some engine degreaser as well because the engine is absolutely disgusting in this thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak that down and then I'll give you guys an update when it's all cleaned up and ready to go.
So while I had the degreaser sitting, I realized I really should flush the cooling system, so I'm not going to be able to drain and change the coolant just yet. So in the meantime, let's get that interior put together.
Ow! Oh! This is gonna suck.
Why?
Can't get the impact gun in there.
Maybe one. Well then, if anything, if you can get the bolt lined up, I can tighten it from down here.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try to do.
Yeah, see if I give you the wrench and you just pass the impact.
Alright, let's get a bolt then, shall we? Where's that silver one I just had? Where'd you go? There it is. And you said this wasn't bolted in?
No.
Come on.
Which one are you going for?
Back one. You gotta be shitting me. Alright, let's get the front ones.
Okay.
Hopefully this fits. Where'd they all go? Doesn't matter, the bolts fitting through the chair, which those do not.
14s?
Yeah, they're too fat.
I'm gonna just get a step it.
Alright, let's see if I can realign this hole again.
So installing the front seats in this truck were a living hell to do. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. That's because every single hole that was there for the seats were not threaded. The person who owned the truck before me just took some bolts and put holes in the floor, lined it up to where it should be, and called it a day. I don't know what was going on with that, but it was just a hassle. The back half, on the other hand, since it was a stock seat, went in like butter, as it should. Crazy, isn't it? Now that we got that back seat installed finally, the lower half of the truck is complete. I could not be more happy with the results on this thing. When I tell you it's a night and day difference when you look at these things in person, it is literally a night and day difference. The smell could not be transferred over on the camera, of course, but there is a huge improvement. This thing smelled rancid. It smelled like something died in here. I found a box of mac and cheese on the floor. Why was that there? No idea, but the seats and the carpet look brand new compared to what they were before.
Alrighty guys, so I'm pretty much going to wrap up the video here. We already made a huge progress on the truck. So right now that we changed literally everything that we could, the truck runs fantastic. Probably good as new because literally besides the long block at this point has been replaced. So what else would you expect? We found, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that the front tank was not working because the fuel pump, was completely melted. Now, I don't think that actually happened because of it being like an aftermarket pump. I really do believe it's because it was completely clogged. Here's a little close-up of that. And then on top of that, the fuel filter itself was just absolutely clogged. It was coming out like brown almost completely, and obviously that thing's supposed to be able to flow, and that was obviously in conjunction with the terrible fuel pump our fuel restriction and causing the engine to stumble and misfire besides sitting there running at idle. I do believe that the throttle position sensor and the idle air control valve are also not too happy, because there's like a little cap that was on the back of the idle air control valve that was just loose and you were able to free spin it. And the one that we had at a replacement wasn't able to do that, and it looks like it was like pressed on there. So either somebody went in there and tried to mess with it at one point, or it just fatigued and broke over time. Either or, the answer was to replace it at the end of the day anyway. All of these parts right here actually were really cheap, surprisingly. I mean, what else would you expect for a 30-year-old truck, that the parts would be readily available and cheap? But that's the reason why that I picked the OBS Ford, and on top of that, it being super reliable for the majority of the time. So I really appreciate you all tuning in. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in next week's video. Take care.